Welcome to Revlog, where this week we come to the end of our study in Nehemiah. We come to Nehemiah chapter 13. As we do that, I do want to begin by talking about the series as a whole. I've been pleasantly surprised by the series. And I feel like the congregation has responded pretty well
What do
to
you mean
this series.
surprised?
The depth of this study and the engagement with this study is better than I expected.
Oh, I thought you meant like the actual content was.
I was thinking about more our interaction with the text. But I will say I did find the content more refreshing than I expected to. I mean, with that, I was really grateful for this time. I mean, there's a lot more here than just putting a few stones on top of one another. And, grateful for that.
A lot more than masonry.
Yeah.
I think the amazing object lesson that we had behind us the entire time
hadn't that been fun?
Very, very helpful.
Yeah, having the construction in the sanctuary as we go through Nehemiah. Yes. And that was genuinely the Lord.
Yeah.
It just so happened that those two things fell together in the Lord's timing. And I was grateful for that. I mean, what have you sensed in Nehemiah as a whole before we get to chapter 13?
I have just always loved the story and just his determination, he had a vision and so much opposition, and yet just stuck to it, and just how the Lord just rewarded the people through his faithfulness. It was an incredible story.
Yeah, Nehemiah was strong to stay the course. No, the Lord was with him in that.
That's right.
With that, but there was real strength in his leadership doing that. Yeah. BR, what about for you?
This people is not dead yet. I mean, that's what I have seen pulsing through this study.
Yeah, it is a revival of the people, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this renewal where we come to moments of real joy in the completion of the project, but really in their worship of the Lord.
I mean, some people might have said, with apologies to Princess Bride, they were just mostly dead, but they're not dead. They're not dead.
No, that's right. Yeah, I'm grateful for that. So, but this week we come. This is our last week in Nehemiah. We'll move to 2 Peter next week. We'll come to Nehemiah 13, and we've had this grand moment of worship, and we're moving beyond that. And Nehemiah is still going to keep the course.
That's right.
After the celebration, because there is real infringement on keeping the Sabbath here, and he's going to hold the line. Aaron, as you read through this, what did you hear in this text?
I just would encourage everybody to read the whole chapter. And just because if you start right in the middle there, it feels like they worshipped and then it all fell apart. And it's he's reminding them. He's saying in these days I'm reminded of the things that used to happen, and he's just it's as if there's this track and this course where these ruts have been trodden for years, and he's reminding them of the pattern that they had gotten into, these bad habits of Sabbath breaking and many other things, and tithing was one of them, and withholding some from the Levites what was due to them, according to God's law, and he was kind of setting the stage like this is where we've come from,
right?
And so let's just keep that forefront in our minds, so that after we're coming off of this amazing worship and celebration, it's so easy often just to get right back in that rut.
Just to fall back into the rut.
Yeah, and so we not that we have to kind of keep lashing ourselves at the sin of that we've been forgiven, but we need to be reminded of how easily we slid into it in the first place.
Yeah, and we have to set the guardrails in such a way that we don't fall back into those habits and those sins, which I think is where he's shaping their life together. Yeah. Brian, what about for you as you read through this text?
It's so interesting because what we see in Nehemiah and Ezra, you fast forward that several centuries to the time of Christ, and then you see Jesus and his disciples going through the fields on the Sabbath and picking some of the grain and eating it. And then it's the Pharisees who are
challenge him.
Yeah, exactly. And so you think, well, what happened here? This is, but as is our want, we often take things and put them in cement, and we just make them these blocks of non-living material, And here there was Nehemiah was attempting to help them to say, attempting to say to them, you need to pay attention to God. You need to pay attention to your the Spirit inside of you, and how you need God, and how refreshment is possible, and how all of these other things 24/7 become a dead end. I was somebody told me the other day, and I didn't know this, that the state legislature has passed a law that says that students in public schools cannot use their cell phones.
Yes, right.
And
there's been much suffering and complaint.
Much wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, they cannot use cell phones in school anymore, and cannot have Apple Watches, which they're not.
Yeah. Well, even at lunchtime,
That's
they can't do this.
terrible.
And and he was saying that to watch this person that was telling me this is a teacher, and he was telling me that the very first day of school, he and his other fellow teachers were noticing that there was this greater amount of interaction between the students and at lunch and so forth, because they were not distracted.
They actually talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this is, it's really of a piece. This is what happens. Whether it's hauling figs, on a wooden cart, for everybody to buy, or whether it's increasing your screen time, when that just continues to go, all of a sudden we're just bragging about breaking the fourth commandment. I'm just blowing and going, and nothing ever slows down, and then what do we become? We become shriveled up, versions of ourselves, which is not what God has intended.
I like that, bragging about breaking the fourth commandment. Yeah, that's good. Is that yours?
No. I've heard that before. For years. Yeah.
I'm gonna just quote you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you do that.
Bragging about breaking the fourth commandment.
Actually, how I originally heard it years and years ago was the fourth commandment is the only commandment we brag about breaking.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
Yeah, Eugene Peterson has some similar contemplation in one of his books that pastors do the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Truly.
Aaron, as you read through this text on Sabbath, what question do you have of the text?
Well, again, for me, it's about those ruts and those routines that we kind of habitually go to that are not good for us. And I want to, as Brian did, I want to fast forward to the New Testament. When Christ rose, he still bore the wounds of our sin and our transgression. And I think that is an incredible image to think that he was fully alive and yet still bearing that. And so I don't think that we need to continually just walk through life feeling, like so defeated because,
just wearing our guilt.
Right. That. Thank you. I was struggling to articulate that. But I think we also need to be very aware, okay, that scar is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And that I am healed and I'm forgiven, but I shouldn't forget that scar so that I don't get back to that place. So my question then is, am I aware of where I've been forgiven, and am I guarding then my heart and my life so that those habits don't take over again?
Yeah, amen. Yeah, well said. Brian, what about for you? What question do you have?
Rather than carving out time for Sabbath, how do I let Sabbath carve its effects into my life? How do I flip that? That's my question.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah, and I hope that we together can take Sabbath seriously as well. Find that rest, find that worship. And we'd love to hear your thoughts on the Nehemiah series as a whole, or on Nehemiah 13, if you would comment below.